Brothers and sisters, it is 11:40, and we invite you to take a seat and buckle up. This hour, this presentation, I have 50 slides and we have 55 minutes. I don't know how we're going to get them all in, so I might go a little fast. And you're going to want to ask questions, and I'm okay to take questions, but just realize I'm going to say preemptively, we might answer your questions along the way. If there's time at the end, I'm happy to take as many questions as there are, but we're going to drink from a fire hose a little bit about the hymn book. We want to pull back the curtain a little bit on what's been happening and with the hymn book and related resources. So with that, when we tell people, when people find out that I work with the hymn book, I'm the chair of the hymn book committee from Salt Lake, and when people find that out, there are, well, lately, I mean, there are certain questions that come. Early on, the question was, are we going to get Come Thou Fount back in our hymn book? That was by far the most frequently asked question. These days, the questions are more like this. When will the hymn book revision be done? Is Jesus going to come first? And lately, can we sing this little light of mine in sacrament meeting? Yes. So these are some of the questions, and we'll address it. Okay.
That came up on the way over. Yeah, whether we can sing this little light of mine.
You know what? I won't string you along. The answer to that is everything that has been released in the advanced releases are approved for all meetings by the First Presidency. Again, we're trying to accomplish something in those meetings. So depending on what we're trying to accomplish, it may or may not, every hymn may or may not be appropriate for whatever meeting, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Now, you as musicians have things that you would like to accomplish, and so does the bishop. So we coordinate together, but everything is available. Everything that is released is available for use. Please.
To the point of intentional stuff. So last Sunday, I played that hymn, This Little Light of Mine, because the speaker was speaking on Elder Kieran's talk. And we decided that this was the appropriate thing to help us understand the intent of what his message was.
Did you play from the organ or the piano?
I played from the organ.
How did it go?
Very well.
And how did people sing?
It was robust.
Awesome. So there you go. Okay. What does it mean to revise the hymn book? When we first found out from the First Presidency that they wanted a hymn book revision, we looked at what had been done before, and it seemed fairly straightforward. You take out a few hymns that people aren't using, you put in a few new hymns, you publish a new book, and that's it. We don't live in the 1980s anymore, and it became apparent that, yeah, we're doing some of that. But also the hymns and the children's songs, along the way we learned that the children's song also needed to be revised for the same reasons. And it's not just about taking out some hymns and putting some in. The hymns or songs themselves may need to be revised, and that can take a little more time. In July of 1830, the Lord directed Emma Smith to make a selection of hymns. He said, "As it shall be given thee, which is pleasing to me to be had in my church." This is our sacred music collection today. Do you know what years they were released?
1985.
1985 and 89, that's right. That's right. How many of you remember singing from these?
Yes. And the supplements.
I still have that one.
When were they released?
45 and, oh, I was off by 3 years. I was close.
1948 and 1969. So let's talk a little bit about the revisions that that we'll talk a little bit about what happened in the past and what's happening now. What we know about the New Hymn Book is the title, Hymns for Home and Church. It's intentional that home was included first. The first presidency, the leaders of the church have been talking about using a home-centered, church-supported model for learning and worship, right? And they want the hymn book to be that too. The hymns and the children's song books, which are both being revised, are coming together into one collection where the lines between hymns for adults and songs for children will be blurred intentionally. Why would the leaders of the church want to blur the lines between hymns and songs?
Teaching opportunities.
Teaching opportunity?
I was gonna say that children's hymns are pure in spirit. They have a very good, clear way to learn gospel doctrine.
Yeah.
We're all children of God. We all need those basic principles.
Yeah. Children, the leaders of the church want children to sing more hymns, and they want adults to sing more children's songs. And you've seen that in General Conference as well. The same selections and the same numbers in every language. Who served a foreign mission are familiar with the hymn book in whatever language? Same hymns? Same hymn numbering? Same number of hymns? No, they all kind of vary, and for the first time they'll be the same in every language. These are the inputs. This is kind of a slide. I don't know if everyone can even see this. I apologize. But why is this taking so long? And part of it has to do with these numbers. Okay, in purple up here, you'll see how many hymns are in our current hymn book. The answer is 550. 341 of which are in the English collection. In your Spanish hymn book or Korean or whatever the language may be, there may be closer to 200 hymns. But all taken together, there are 550 hymns in our international hymn book. Okay? In our song book, there are 373 children's songs, 268 of which exist in our English version of the children's song book. So in our hymn book and song book taken together right now, there are 923 hymns and songs. That's what's in our current collection. In the coming collection, as they come together, the First Presidency has asked for a collection of 450 to 500. Now, usually when we say 450 to 500, people are like, wow, that's a lot, more than we have now. It's actually a reduction by half of our current collection. But in English, we'll have fewer hymns and songs total. In other languages, they'll have more in many cases. Right? In addition, we did a call for submissions, and we received 21,000 submissions, and after administrative review, which you can imagine took a little while, we found that there were 17,000 unique original hymns and songs that were submitted by members of the church. So all of the hymns, all of the songs, all of the new submissions, and then we're also looking at the best Christian hymns, the hymns that are meaningful. Some of them we sang today, like Hail the Day That Sees Him Rise and It Is Well With My Soul, that are in the corpus of Christian music now, but haven't been in our collection. So those are being looked at. And then this number was an early number, but there's a bunch of music that's been published by the church or others, Latter-day Saint published songs. All of those have been going through a process, and yeah, it has taken a little time.
How big is your committee?
Yeah, you
All
and
together, the Hymn Book Committee, Children's Songbook Committee, all the members of the subcommittees, the translation teams, and the people who are helping us around the world, we counted about 380 the other day, and I'm sure we left people out because it's a lot to keep track of. But these are the criteria. Can you believe that? that are used. Will my favorite hymn or song be in the hymn book? What color will the hymn book be? What size will the hymn book be? What resources are going to go online and what goes in print? And every question comes back to these. Everyone has these memorized and talks about them in every meeting. These are the things that the First Presidency has said we want to accomplish with church music. So these are, yeah, will your hymn be in the hymn book? Well, how well does it do these things? Pioneer Children Sang as They Walked and Walked and Walked and Walked is a fun song that can get stuck in your head.
Yeah, thanks.
Right? It's memorable, and we can make an activity song out of it that's great. It doesn't mention God, it doesn't mention the Spirit, it doesn't mention why the pioneers were walking. So what do you do with something like that? If it doesn't teach core doctrine, it doesn't increase faith in worship, although there's the implication that they're walking for a reason. They're driven by faith, right? So these are the kinds of discussions that have happened with every hymn and song. The music, does the music invite joyful singing, or does it not? What if the text is great and the music is just not? Or it was at one time, but it feels dated today, right? So those are some of the discussions. Back to the revisions. Revisions. In addition to taking out some hymns and songs, sometimes a hymn or a song that doesn't seem to meet these goals to the high degree that we would hope that they would, the hymn or song themselves could be revised to better align with the criteria for inclusion. So text and music teams have been some of the best authors, poets, lyricists in the church, and another team of music editorial team with some of the best composers and music professors and theoreticians and then some other everything. Several of the committee members are not musicians on purpose, so that we can see from that perspective, which trained musicians can't see anymore, right? But so text and music editorial teams have been appointed to review, and most changes are modest. So for the text, punctuation, spelling, capitalization is most of the changes, and music might be a key change to make it easier to sing or play, or voice part adjustments for easier singing. Some changes are more significant to clarify doctrine or to be more inclusive. Now this happened with the 1985 hymnal as well, and I'll point out some of them were very simple. Joseph Smith's First Prayer, what changed in 1985 regarding that hymn? Does anyone know?
The title.
Just the title. The title previously was, "Oh, How Lovely Was the Morning," was just the first line. And that committee said, a title would really tell us more what this hymn is about. That was a simple change. How about How Firm a Foundation? What changed in that one?
You who unto Jesus.
You who unto Jesus. So you who unto Jesus, there was some people were making fun of that phrase. They're doing you who unto Jesus. And it changed to who unto the Savior for refuge have fled. Some of you are maybe young enough that you didn't realize that the words were different previously. Please.
I was always sad when the flower Blewett had to be replaced in the primary soon, but I understand.
Well, there's a lot. That blew it. Yeah, love it. Have I done any good? What do you remember from this one?
This is my husband's favorite. The world has no need for a drone.
Only he who does something is worthy to live. Is what it said before 1985. Only he who does something is worthy to live. Wow. And the following line was, the world has no use for the drone. To God each good work will be known. So can you see how these changes could help somebody's experience to achieve those outcomes, to comfort the weary and inspire members to endure? Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about some specific hymns. Now Let Us Rejoice was in our hymn book prior to 1985, and it continues in 1985. But one of the things that continues now is in the chorus. It says, "And none will molest them from morn until eve." It's interesting that until the 1950s, the etymology of this word shows us that it wasn't until the 1950s that the word molest was used for abuse, particularly sexual abuse. The first time that the word molest was ever used in that context Before that, the dictionary definition was to disturb or annoy. So in W.W. Phelps's day, none shall molest them just meant to disturb them. But now that word has taken on another disturbing element that causes people pain, right? So what do you do with something like that? And the type of thing that the text team says is, how can we find a word that kind of sounds like molest that doesn't have the pain? Oppress uses the same vowels. It has the same kind of sibilance in there. It sounds similar, but so, and none will oppress them from morn until even, right?
Brings back the original meaning.
It brings back the original meaning and can take away the pain. Sometimes that kind of thing is easily done. Sometimes it might take more than just changing a word. In Come, O Thou King of Kings, in verse 4 it says, while all the chosen race, their Lord and Savior own, the heathen nations bow the knee. Unifying language? It doesn't seem to be, right? Now, is it doctrinally correct? And the answer is, well, we know that throughout the history of mankind in the Lord's church, whether we call it the seed of Abraham or the house of Israel, the scriptures talk about a chosen race, but the chosen race, you can choose to be in the chosen race. The chosen race is those who let God prevail in their lives. It's the house of Israel. It's the seed of Abraham. Those who covenant with God and keep those covenants. And you can choose to not be a member of that race by not making or by breaking covenants. But that's not very clear. Our second goal is to teach the core doctrine of the gospel with power and clarity. And if it takes a dissertation to help understand how this is okay, it's not clear, right? Heathen means those who don't make covenants as well. So those are scriptural terms, but they feel a little offensive today. So what do you do with this? Maybe something like this would work. Now all who seek thy face, does that sound like those who will let God prevail in their lives?
Yeah.
Now all who seek thy face, their Lord and Savior own. Let all the nations bow the knee and every tongue sound praise to thee.
Right.
So these kinds of things are being considered, right, on the text side. Let's talk a little bit about these new hymns, the new submissions and so forth. In our current hymn book, there are 341 hymns. That takes 434 pages in the book because some hymns are longer than one page, right? We had 17,000 submissions from members, assuming that all of them were only one page, which is not the case. That's 17,000 pages. If we were to include them all, what would our hymn book look like? It would be that thick. That's if everything was a one-page hymn. Yeah.
Now let's look at the big
39
print
hymn
version.
books in thickness. We would love to take them all.
We need a new music stand.
In 1985 or prior to 1985, there were 6,000 submissions, and 48 of them made it into the hymn book. So a little less than 1% of the total. So 1% of 17,000 would be 170. That's a lot of new hymns. Probably not able to do that, but the review of these submissions happened in 3 rounds. The first round went to 130 global reviewers, musicians throughout the church in many languages, accomplished people throughout the church, in quadruple blind review. That means that every text and the music was reviewed by 4 different judges in different places around the world without knowing who the contributors were. Nobody knows who submitted them. And depending on how well those 4 people came together and said, I want to say this. We had feedback from the reviewers time and time and time again saying, some of these, you can tell that the person doesn't have a music theory background, but I felt the Spirit so strongly when I came across their offering. This is their offering. They laid this on the altar, and it was a privilege to review it. From those, so there were 17,000 pieces in batches of 100 that were reviewed, and from that, 4,000 of them went to a second round of reviews with 34 new global reviewers. people who didn't participate in the first review at all, and they looked at batches of 50 for 4,000 pieces. They did an additional quadruple blind review, and then it went, the top 900 of those went to the hymn book committee, and they went through every word and every note together of those top 900 of the 17,000. Again, do we include them? These are the criteria. To revise or not to revise, these are the criteria, and the committees have had rigorous discussions. Let's talk about what happens then if something is put through this filter and fares well, or has a lot of potential that maybe with revisions could be brought to do these things even better. So here's the process. First of all, the hymn book committee does initial reviews of the text and music. For all of that music that we saw, the hymn book committee did not see all of the 17,000. The hymn book committee saw the top 900. Did you catch that? But then all of the things in every language in our current hymn book and children's songbook, and all of the LDS things and so forth. As they identify things that that meet those criteria quite well, then they move forward to the editorial teams, a music team and a text team, for an in-depth review and recommendations. Here are some things that might strengthen this. The music is dated. We found some parallel fifths and octaves so the theoreticians are going through and saying this voice leading could be improved, or whatever, or this doctrine is funny, or this isn't well understood. And then it goes back to the hymn book committee for additional review and endorsement. When they feel that it's ready to show to leaders, the first people that look at it are the project advisors, and they review, and only when they're happy does it move forward. So who are our committee advisors currently? That's Elder Renland, Elder Carpenter of the 70, and President Porter, who's the primary president, are the current advisors to the hymn book project. There have been others before them, including Elder Rasband and Elder Suarez from the 12, and Elder Kapishka, Elder Curtis, Elder Catcher, Elder Stanfield, Elder Yagi, Elder Ochoa, Elder Cordon, Elder Morrison, and Sister Christina B. Franco have all been advisors to the committee. When they're satisfied, then it goes to the Priesthood and Family Department, which is where the church music office is located, to the executive directors for review. There's 4 pictured here, but there's about 16 of them that sit on this, and they go through the music, and they look and they ask questions about the text and so forth, and they say, this one feels a little high, could it be brought down? And those discussions are had, and it may go back to the editorial teams or back to the committee. When they're satisfied, it goes to the Priesthood and Family Executive Council with Elder Uchtdorf. Elder Renlin also sits on that. Bishop Kosei, Sister Johnson, who's the Relief Society president, members of the presidency of the 70, etc. And that's about a dozen people on that council. When they're satisfied, then it goes to the Quorum of the 12, and they review everything. They hear them. If they're not musicians themselves and can't sit down at the piano, they're provided with recordings of them, but they go through the text and they go through the music. Only when they're satisfied and they make recommendations to the First Presidency does it go there. And the First Presidency is very interested in what's happening, and they review every word and every note, and we have received feedback from the First Presidency on both text and music and said, would you reconsider this or that? Everything that has been published in the advance release has been through this process and has been approved by the First Presidency. Now, only after it goes through all of that does it go forward for translation. The hope is to have this hymn book in short order in 100 languages. About half of those will get the full hymn book, and the other half will start with a smaller collection so that they have something to sing. They have hymns that the rest of the world are singing, but when it will wait until they reach certain benchmarks as far as church growth to get the full hymn book. Because there are some areas that their members are very, very few, and they don't have any music now. By comparison, the 1985 hymn book, the green hymn book that we have now, is in 43 languages. That took 37 years to happen. We're hoping to have 100 languages pretty close to 2030. So this has never been done before. And the translation, we call it transcreation. It's not a word this is an industry term that you translate a talk, you can do it word for word. You just need to say what it says in a new language. But music is poetry. It rhymes. It has meter. It has rhyme. It has rhythm. It has and it has poetic beauty. And trying to do all of that in a new language makes it so that a word-for-word translation just is not possible and not desirable, right? We want it to sound beautiful, like it was created in the target language as if that was the source language. And that requires a lot of training. But translation teams are being overseen by church headquarters, and they're being trained in principles of rhythm, rhyme, meter, etc., form. And they're for every hymn, here's the form of this piece, here's the meter, here's the rhyme scheme. As you do this, here are some imagery that's happening in the original language. Can you make this happen in the new language? And they're trained how to do that. Here's two translation teams, the French team, a Spanish team. The groups of languages are released together. You may know that the new released hymns are in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French. And then there's other groups of languages behind that. As the third batch of new hymns came out just last week before last, Korean and Tagalog and German got batch 1 the same day that you got batch 3. And the Chinese and Japanese are close on the heels. They almost had everything ready to drop at the same time, but they'll be coming. And then when batch 4 comes out in English, that group will get batch 2, and a new group of languages will get batch 1.
Does AI assist?
AI is being explored on all this, but it's not yet, we haven't proven yet that it is able to accomplish things to a high degree. It's being explored, yeah. Yeah, I think that there's great potential there, but we're really close. And improvements in AI seem to happen week over week, so there's a close eye happening on that. Some smaller languages have never had the hymns translated before. They're getting in the very first time. And one example is Chiluba, which is a language spoken in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They have been singing in French, for those who know French, and some don't, but for the first time, they're getting music in Chiluba. And I want you to see the reaction of this translation team after they finished. They were being trained how to do these transcreations into Chiluba. And when they finished their first hymn that they were being trained on, which was Did You Think to Pray, this is their reaction as they sang it together for the first time. Now you hear that there were some local adaptations of what the music sounded like as they learned it in French, and it will take additional resources to bring the church together on those kinds of things, which we'll talk about here too. Now, when is it going to be done? Well, let's just say that it's in a race with the Salt Lake Temple, which was scheduled for late 26 to 27, and they just announced that the temple is in open house from April to October of 2027. So the important thing is not that we're in a race with the Salt Lake Temple. The important thing is that we win. But the desire to give members music earlier than waiting for the whole thing to be done. By the way, the full hymn book will not drop. Part of the reason that it's taking so long as far as those dates are concerned is the First Presidency is concerned that this has always been an English-speaking church and that everyone else is second-class citizens, and they want to hold the English translation, or the English book, until Spanish, Portuguese, and French are also done, and let all of those languages drop at the same time. That represents about 90% of the members of the church who speak those languages. And so those will all come at the same time. Meanwhile, have you heard that small batches of new hymns and songs are being released in advance? How fun is that? Have you enjoyed those?
Yes.
They'll continue to be released every few months until the full book is complete. And to help members learn the hymns in Chaluba and everywhere else, everywhere that a new hymn is published, recordings will go out at the same time. We learned that this hymn book, for instance, was released in, trying to think which language in the Philippines, Cebuano. In the Philippines, a Cebuano hymn book was published, but members in the Philippines don't tend to read music. And they looked at it and they said, okay, we see the words, but we don't know how the words go with the notes. And then someone said, well, there's recordings in English. And they said, oh, good, give me the English one. So they sing from English because they don't know how to sing the Cebuano. They would prefer to sing in the language that they pray in and the language that they cry in, but they don't know how. So we're not calling them internally at church headquarters. We don't refer to these as recordings. We refer to them as the audio version of the hymn book. It is the only version of the hymn book. This is a printed, these are not hymns. This is a roadmap for hymns, right? What percentage of the world can make sense of this? I'm not exactly sure what the number is, but what percentage of the world can listen to a recording and mimic that and say, I know how to learn this hymn? Near 100%, right? So you've noticed that there have been vocal recordings. Some are melody only, some are 4-part. Accompaniment recordings including both piano and guitar. Have you been listening to the recordings?
Yes.
Have you heard? This is Jordan. He's 4 years old. And just listen.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Does that melt your heart?
So cute.
Okay. Here is a guitar version of, so if we don't have someone who can accompany, or I want to use this at home, or I just want to sing it in my car or whatever, we have accompaniment versions including. For the 1985 hymn book are dated now. We listen to them and they feel inaccessible. I don't want to put it on my playlist. I think most people don't. They were well done for the day. The quality was high, but the way that they were done doesn't relate with us anymore. What's that?
Mechanical. Some of them.
Perhaps. Recorded by oboes and strings and in a vocal style that just members today say that doesn't resonate with them. I would put this on my playlist and just listen to it in the background, not just as accompaniment. And I'm excited. I served my mission in Korea, but here's Sacrament Hymn, Bread of Life, Living Water. Again, every language that sheet music is given, an audio version is given at the same time. Where possible, those who are able to record it in their own country, we work with them to be able to do that. If they're not able to do that, well, we figure it out.
Where do you find these performers?
So I'll talk about that a little more later as well, but people in countries, church employees in the area help us find, they tend to know who the singers are in their country.
They go to this regional
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
Like
Musicians know each other, right? Beautiful though, right? Yeah, yeah. You'll notice some other things. Notice that 6/8. Do I conduct this in 6? What do I do? We're helping to prompt. Tempos are generally faster. I don't know what it was about the 1980s, but life must have been a lot slower. I mean, I was in high school in the 1980s, and yeah, I don't remember it being that slow. But we look back now at those tempos and think, what were we thinking? So the tempos are generally faster, and some conducting helps are given. You'll notice that the mood markings have been removed. Those are both difficult to translate, and we've found that they were not really as helpful as we thought they were. But conducting helps may be helpful for people to understand what beat pattern to use. Because if I conduct this in 8, why should I feel discouraged? Even if I do a quick 8, bum, 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 bum. Why should I feel discouraged? It's going to encourage the right tempo. Does that make sense? You'll notice that the scriptures have been moved to the top of the page rather than down at the bottom. And in digital resources, you can just click on them and it brings them right up, right? Which is kind of fun. You'll notice that guitar chords, or we should say chord symbols, are included for every hymn and every song. This is useful to members some of whom can't play the accompaniments right now, but if they were given the chord symbols, they might be able to do something with that, right? And especially guitar players. So guitar players, in order to make that even easier, you'll notice that on the website, there's a link along the side, and we'll try and make this more prominent in the future, but there's a link that says, I can get guitar capo sheet music. For those of you who are guitar players, you know what that means. I can clamp on a capo onto my fretboard of the guitar to make the fretboard shorter. It essentially raises the key. It's like on the organ, if you change the transposer, right? So for guitars, if I click on this, notice that we're in B flat. And if I go and look at it says, put a capo on fret 3 and now play a G. That's going to be easier for you to play. So guitar players will have something a little easier there. To help members learn the hymns, first of all, key signatures in many cases have been simplified. The accompaniments, you'll notice that some of them are organ friendly and some might be a little more idiomatically pianistic. They're piano friendly. And please don't be shy if something feels like this could be accompanied on a piano to great success in a sacrament meeting, to slide over to the piano to do that. We saw that demonstrated in our hymn sing this morning. Simplified versions of the accompaniments will be forthcoming. On the website, there is an interactive player. This will soon be in Gospel Library app as well, where you can transpose the hymns and print them out in a new key. There's a little mixer where you can change the tempo, you can learn the vocal parts, and this is available now for all current hymns and songs as well as all of the new hymns and songs. And in the future, some church choral music will be on there and other kinds of things as well, where people can go and learn their parts by listen. So there's a little mixer here, and I can say I want to listen to the bass part predominant. So you can just slide that equalizer and listen and then blend it back in as you will. That's available now on the website. Additional helps for learning the hymns. Choir demonstrations. You're noticing that general conference choirs, both visiting choirs and the tabernacle choir, are performing. They're singing in general conference the newly released hymns, and you can probably expect more of that in the upcoming general conference with some of the titles that were just released. To help members find the hymns, The hymn selector and gospel library. Now, we talked about this in the morning session with priesthood leaders and music coordinators. But priesthood leaders or music coordinators can go in advance and in gospel library choose from the new hymns for home and church, hymns 1985 in the children's songbook, and in this case, somebody chose for this coming Sunday, I Feel My Savior's Love as an opening song, as Now We Take the Sacrament as the sacrament hymn, and Take My Heart and Let It Be Consecrated, hymn 1025 as the closing hymn. They put that in advance, and then when members show up on Sunday, what they see in the Gospel Library app is a digital hymn board that shows the hymns on there, and if I click on the title, it will bring up that hymn immediately in my app so that I can just use that. So that is super helpful, and we hope that people are using that. How many of you are using that in your ward? Okay, so many of you, great. Hymn study aids. You've seen some of this, but the story behind the hymn, one of these was shared in the hymn sing today. There's also additional scriptures, doctrinal principles, questions to ponder, and related study guides. These are on the website and available through the app right now for all of the new material, and will be included. This is a pilot that's being done, and as we show that members are using this resource, then it will continue to happen for the rest of the project. I don't think there's any concern that members are not going to use this. What it looks like, the way to get to this in your app is to pull up a hymn or song. In this case, I chose this little light of mine, and click on the lyrics tab rather than the sheet music view. Down below the lyrics, if you click on About This Hymn, it will take you to a page where you see the backstory. You scroll down, you see additional scriptures that you can click on and bring up that are related to the hymn, principles that are taught, and questions to ponder about this. This is for all of the things that are newly released. This is in your app right now. At the same time, there's historical research going on to identify and obtain source documents to establish provenance and authorship for every hymn and song. So as you look at the bottom of the page and it says, this is who wrote it, this is who composed it. As we've gone about seeking to just verify that with original documents, we have found, and to clarify historical and biographical details, the intent is to make that research accessible to members. We have found that we have been passing along for years the faith-promoting rumors of our fathers about who wrote certain hymns and songs. So you may see that some of that information changes going forward. And I'll give you just a few examples. Jesus Wants Me for a Sunbeam was written by Nellie Talbot, but nobody has, and we're not the only church that uses Jesus Wants Me for a Sunbeam. It's not an LDS song, it's one that we use. But no one has ever been able to identify it, but our research team found Ellen Alice Talbot, and were able to find the first instance of her writing this and sharing that. Again, all of these documents that they're finding will be stored in the church history library website, and we'll be able to link from the app to there. So you can see, oh, this is who wrote it. You can look at the first time that the music was published, or the first text, and pull up original documents and see them. It's really exciting. Thanks to Our Father is a song in our children's songbook that was written by Robert Louis Stevenson. So we thought. It turns out it wasn't. It was Harriet Blanche Jones. Give Said the Little Stream. Fanny Crosby wrote over 1,000 hymns in her lifetime. She was blind and a prolific hymn writer. And we have always given credit to Fanny Crosby for Give Said the Little Stream. Source documents just say MKM as kind of a pseudonym for the author. People assumed that it was Fanny Crosby. Our researchers were able to prove who MKM actually is. And we have original source for Sophia Holworthy. I Am a Child of God. Lyrics by Naomi Ward Randall. So what we have now is that she wrote all the lyrics. It came from God to her pen, to paper, and never changed until Spencer W. Kimball changed one word. And it turns out that there's a little more to it than that. Mildred Pettit, who wrote the music, helped with the text, and we have letters going back and forth between the two of them, and we can see kind of the how that text developed. And in the new collection, Mildred Pettit will get credit not only for the music, but for her part in the text as well.
Is verse 4 in there?
It is in our current collection in the children's songbook, and we'll have to see what the First Presidency decides. Okay. Are you aware of the hymnbook webpage? newmusic.churchofjesuschrist.org. There are videos there that talk about using the new hymns and frequently asked questions, how to use them in church. There's project updates. This is what the website looks like, newmusic.churchofjesuschrist.org. As there are updates, that's where you will find that. I see people taking pictures, so I'll wait just a moment. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. Is that all? No.
Of course not.
There's more. So that's the hymn book, but at the same time the hymn book is happening, there's other things happening. How are we doing on, we have 10 minutes. Handbook changes. Did you notice that a year and a half ago, new changes came, and the handbook chapter is now 19 for music, and updated information for music callings, what the names of the callings are. For instance, we have music leaders, not choristers. Choristers has never actually been, that's never been a term that we've used from Salt Lake to describe. So chorister, the dictionary definition, the first dictionary definition is a member of a choir, especially the young boy who gives the pitch at the beginning of a song. There is a definition down the list that allows for someone who leads the music. But if you are the chorister, you're either the primary music leader or the music leader for your ward. Surprise.
But Brother Schank, is that correct? Because they are in the ward, we have printed programs, and it says chorister, not music leader.
Yeah.
That changed.
Yeah. Well, it's you know what, we're all learning. We're all learning. It's tradition, and yeah. But you'll notice that your calling in tools says that you're the music leader.
And when you are set apart, you're not set apart as chorister. You are set apart as music leader.
Well, it depends on who's giving you the blessing. But this is the handbook language. I don't want to make a bigger point out of that than it is. You know what? If people call it chorister, it's fine. Instruments in church. I love to see the brass choir last night. So much fun. And you know what? That as it meets the goals for sacred music, the handbook allows for instruments that were discouraged in the past. In fact, you'll find that in the handbook, any language that said "don't do this" has been removed. Instead, it says these are the principles that are trying to be accomplished through music. Now go do that. Right?
They just played in their sacrament meeting.
We teach correct principles, and members govern themselves. And if they do that, if they want to worship through music, go and do it. If you don't have someone who can play the piano or organ, or for another reason, a bishop can authorize people to accompany hymns.
Guitar?
Congregational singing.
Guitar is okay?
Guitar is okay. Yeah, but it's with the bishop's authorization. But the handbook allows for guitar or other instruments to be used for not only prelude and postlude and special musical numbers. We don't call them special musical numbers anymore. What makes them special over any other hymn? But even congregational hymns with bishop's approval can be used with other instruments. And choosing music for church meetings, the principles are outlined there. Now, prototypes are being developed right now for new training materials for the church. A piano course, an organ course, a guitar course, a conducting course, and primary music leading. These are being developed as prototypes right now as we show to the church leaders their usefulness. That will continue. I have every reason to believe that they will be seen to the end of the road because everybody wants them and sees the value of them. But this is exciting. So this is not something that's available yet, but you'll love it when it comes.
What about the old basic courses? Can we still use
They're still,
those?
yeah, they're still there, and they're being consulted and updated. Again, some of the language and the way that they're can be improved upon. But speaking of those, you'll see the basic conducting course right here in my hand. This was in Kenya, where we went, and this is a young man who had gotten his mission call but wasn't leaving for 6 months, and he wanted to learn to play the piano before he left on his mission. And so the Harmon Music Education Fund is a privately funded thing where the church provides keyboards and music training courses and resources to members around the globe, and missionaries and others can teach them and take them through this course. And once they complete the course, they get to keep the keyboard so that they can continue going for the rest of their lives. The church has placed tens of thousands of keyboards around the world through this program. And anyone who wants to know more, because maybe you're serving a senior mission and say, I would love to train some people over there, you can get involved by writing Music Fund at churchofjesuschrist.org. There's a global talent database. How do we find out about singers in other countries or anywhere? You can go to a site called casting.churchofjesuschrist.org and put in your skills. There's just a list of things. What you'd like to help with what's happening on the church? So what are your skills that we could use? And you'll be notified of opportunities such as performing and recording. The people who are singing on the recordings, or our audio version of the hymn book, are people who we found out through this casting website. They went and put up a recording of their voice and said, if there's ever an opportunity, I'd like to be considered to sing. And so many of them have come from that. It includes directing opportunities. Some people even to direct at church headquarters in a broadcast event or something like that. Event coordination, music engraving. We're going to need some help to get a lot more music into that interactive player, and some people who have music engraving skills who want to volunteer their time could be put to use.
What does that mean?
Music engraving is taking sheet music that's handwritten and putting it in on the computer so that the notes are transferable through digital means. Yeah. Well, engraving is also for physical, but yeah. And reviewing submissions. Even though the call for submissions for the new hymn book is done and those reviews have been done, there's an annual church music submission, and people who have that skill are pulled from. So there's opportunities. Have you heard of the Music for Everyday Listening collection on the website and in the app? Recently released was a second album of songs of devotion for everyday listening. These are hymns and songs that are presented in a style that might resonate with members who want something on their playlist that's something that I would just listen to every day and not just on Sunday. Let me give you an example. There's 2 albums right now of songs of devotion for everyday listening, 20 on each album.
Glory to God on high, let heaven and earth reply. Praise ye his name, his love and grace adore, who all our sorrows bore. Sing aloud evermore, worthy the Lamb.
So there have been a lot of things said about putting sacred music to a popular music style in the past, and I will tell you that the prophets, seers, and revelators who are called to this work today and are in full support of strengthening the rising generation through music that speaks to them. And we're finding that it's not just the rising generation that is listening to and enjoying music.
What's the website for that, or how do you get
This is
that in?
yeah. If you go on the website or on the app, the Sacred Music app, you can go, and it's a collection. Look for Music for Everyday Listening.
Is this related to the Circles app?
No.
They have their music in that.
So the Circles is in the Gospel Living, the Gospel.
Right. Just
Is that the name of it? Yeah, that's a youth resource that many of them are the same recordings, but there are additional things there too. Yeah, including the youth theme album music and things like that. Again, how are we doing on time? Oh, we're at time. So let me just say, there's a lot happening in church music. We hope that you're enjoying the new materials as they come out. Be aware that there's a lot more to come, and the leaders of the church are not only excited about, they not only weigh in on what outcomes they want, but they know that means that we'll need some things to help bring that about, and those resources are being provided. Sister, and then we're done.
Is the cost for printing all of those coming out of people's personal funds or out of ward budgets?
Printing what?
Printing all of
Oh,
these.
he's-
Oh, the newly released music?
Ward
Yeah,
budgets.
for those people that are printing it, because that's useful, that is a local, yes.
Just a quick
Yeah.
question. When will the music be given to the temple presidency to sing in temple prep meetings in the temples? I know they're not using it.
It's available to them now in
Yeah,
the
it's
app and on the
available, yeah.
website.
You're telling them?
I play the organ in
No,
the
we don't
temple.
tell the temple department. No one tells the temple department what to do. Don't get me started. Brothers and sisters, it has been my distinct privilege to be with you today. If you have other questions or comments, I know that the master class is starting in 5 minutes. Is that right?
Right. It would help us a lot. All the hymnals and these came from the chapel. If you could each just bring them and put them on a back pew, it would save us many trips.
The hymn books too?
The temple, yeah, all the hymn books were from the chapel.
Okay.
And the temple organ has all these new ones in it for the organist to do. It just depends if they choose. What
languages did you say that?
English, Spanish, Portuguese, French. Was this helpful? Did you learn anything?
Very. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, blessings on you as you serve in your callings. Thank you so much.